April 1945, Bavaria. The war was almost over, and yet the danger felt sharper than ever. Sergeant James Harper's platoon moved through a stretch of German countryside where the fields rolled quiet and empty. Then they saw it. A massive old barn on an abandoned farm, smoke curling from makeshift chimneys. Private Rodriguez lifted his rifle. "Enemy holdouts?" he muttered. "Or civilians," Harper answered. In the last days of World War II, the lines between both could vanish in a heartbeat. Desperate men did desperate things. They approached with care. The barn was ancient, built of stone and timber that must have stood a century or more. As Harper reached for the door, a sound froze him in place. A chorus of small voices, crying. "Hold fire," he ordered. "Those are kids." "German kids," Rodriguez said, still tense. "Could be a trap." "Or exactly what it sounds like," Harper replied. "Kids in trouble." He pushed the door open. What he saw would haunt him forever. The barn was packed. Children were everywhere. Toddlers clinging to older boys and girls. Teenagers curled up against beams. Thin and filthy, hollow-eyed and silent, until the sight of American uniforms sent a tremor through the room. There were at least 200 of them. "Dear God," Corporal Miller whispered. "What is this?" A girl stepped forward, maybe 15. She spoke quickly in German. Private Klein, the platoon's translator, listened, his own voice shaking as he relayed her words. "She says they're orphans, from all over Germany. Parents killed in bombings, fighting camps. Their orphanage in Munich was hit. The director died. Staff fled. The kids walked 40 miles, looking for shelter." "How long?" Harper asked. 2 weeks, Claney said. "No food left. 3 died yesterday, cold and hunger. German children, enemy civilians." That was what the roster would say, but the labels didn't match the faces in front of him. Harper felt the contradiction like a blow. "We helped them," he said, voice steady. Miller hesitated. "Sir, regulations." "I don't care about regulations. They're children. We're soldiers, not monsters." The orders snapped into place. "Rodriguez, Miller, search the farm for supplies. Kleina, keep talking to the girl. What do they need first? Daniels, get command on the radio and tell them we've found civilians requiring humanitarian assistance." "You want me to tell them they're German kids?" Daniels asked. "Tell them they're children," Harper said. "Command can figure out the politics later." Training kicked in, but for once, the work wasn't about taking ground. It was about making space. Rodriguez found a root cellar with preserved vegetables and a well with clean water. Firewood was stacked behind a shed. Miller reported a farmhouse nearby, abandoned but intact. "We can move the little ones there," he suggested. "Better than this?" "Barn." "Small portions," Harper reminded his men, as they warmed water and broke open canned goods. "Their stomachs can't handle much after starving." The older girl introduced herself as Anna. She spoke careful schoolroom English, learned before the war chewed through everything. "Why you help us?" she asked. "We are German. We are enemy." "Your children," Harper told her. "That's all that matters." A medic arrived from a nearby aid station. He took one look and shook his head. "Malnutrition, infections, pneumonia. We'll save most if we move fast." Then, grimly, "We already lost 2. That first night, as warm broth passed from hand to hand and the smallest bodies were moved to the farmhouse, Daniels tilted the radio in Harper's direction. "Captain wants you," he warned softly. "This is Harper." "Sergeant," the voice snapped, "what the hell are you doing? Those are enemy civilians. You're supposed to be securing the area, not running a charity." "With respect, sir, there are 200 orphans in this barn," Harper answered. "Some are 3 years old. They're starving. I'm not leaving them." "They're not our responsibility," the captain said coldly. "They're human beings," Harper replied. "That makes them everyone's responsibility." Silence. Then, a grudging exhale. "You're putting me in a bad spot, Harper. This is a clear violation of policy, fraternization with the enemy, misuse of resources." "Then court-martial me," Harper said. "But I'm not walking away from dying children. If we can't show basic human decency, what's the point of what we're doing here?" Another long beat. "Damn it. Hold your position. I'll send a medical team and supplies, but if this blows back, it's on you." "Understood, sir," Harper said, the radio heavy in his hand. Around him, his men watched with something like relief and something like awe. "You just gambled your career for German kids," Rodriguez said. "Worth it," Harper answered. In the days that followed, the abandoned farm transformed. The farmhouse became a ward for the sickest. The barn was cleared, swept, and sectioned into sleeping areas. The soldiers worked through the night, heating water, building rough bunks out of salvaged planks, cracking jokes to keep their own fear at bay. "Never thought I'd be changing diapers in Germany," Miller said, cradling a toddler. "War makes us do strange things," Kleena replied. "Sometimes good strange." Anna organized the older children. She distributed food, assigned chores, argued calmly with Harper when she disagreed, and she did often. Late one night, she told him the rest of the story. The Munich orphanage had been bombed 3 times. The director died in the 3rd raid. Staff gathered them, told them to find family, any family, then disappeared. "We had nothing," she said. "No family, no home. So I remembered this farm. My grandmother lived near here. I thought, maybe someone would help." She looked down at her hands. There was no one, only us. "You did good," Harper said. "You got them this far. We'll finish what you started." News of the German orphan rescue traveled fast through Allied channels. Some officers praised the humanity. Others called it dereliction of duty. 4 days after the discovery, a jeep arrived at the farm. A hard-faced colonel stepped out. Colonel Bradford, the inspector everyone feared. "Show me," he said. Harper led him through the barn. Children eating real food provided by the U.S. Army. American GIs tucking blankets around sleeping bodies. Then to the farmhouse ward, where a medic listened to a thin chest. Bradford said nothing. His eyes tracked everything. In the yard, a little girl picked a wildflower and shyly held it up to him. "Danke," she whispered. Outside, Bradford pulled Harper aside. "By every regulation, I should court-martial you," he said. "You diverted a combat unit. You commandeered supplies for enemy civilians." "Yes, sir," Harper replied. "I understand." Bradford's expression shifted. "Just enough." "It's also the most humane thing I've seen in this damn war," he said quietly. "These kids would have died. Maybe we don't owe them anything legally. But morally?" He exhaled. "I'm authorizing this as a military humanitarian mission. You'll get full supply support and additional medical personnel. This farm is now a displaced persons center under American protection." He turned toward the photographer who had accompanied him. "Document it," he said. "Let the American people see what real victory looks like." The photographs hit newspapers within a week. "American soldiers saved 200 German orphans," the headlines read. The reaction was instant and divided. Letters flooded military post offices. Some writers called Harper a hero. Others called him a traitor. Some said the children were future Nazis who should have been left to die. Others sent money, clothes, and toys. A month later, the farm had become a true children's village. British and French soldiers brought supplies. Local Germans, quietly, cautiously, offered help. Churches and charities wrote to ask what was needed. Then a letter arrived that changed everything. Margaret Patterson, a wealthy widow from New York, wrote simply, I own a large estate in the Hudson Valley. It has multiple buildings and 500 acres. I will convert it into a permanent home for these children if you can bring them to America." She came to Bavaria herself, a graceful woman in her 60s with grief behind her eyes. "I lost my son in the Pacific," she told Harper. "I know what it is to hate an enemy. But these children aren't enemies. They're victims. My son died for freedom and justice. Saving them honors that sacrifice more than hatred ever could." Anna challenged her. "Why you help us? Americans hate Germans." "I did," Margaret said. "I hated every German after my boy was killed. But hate doesn't bury the dead. It doesn't heal the living. Helping you does." The plan ignited a new firestorm. Politicians thundered that American children needed help first. Protesters carried signs. "America first, no German kids." But Margaret Patterson was relentless. She secured humanitarian visas. She hired lawyers and social workers. She forced meetings with hard-eyed officials who finally, grudgingly, stamped documents. The crossing to America was grueling. The U.S. Army refitted a transport ship to carry hundreds of passengers. 200 war-traumatized children boarded in the summer heat. Crowded quarters, long lines, seasickness. "If we crammed POWs like this, there'd be an investigation," the ship's medic muttered. 3 days from New York, a boy named Klaus died of pneumonia, his body too weak to fight. Anna held him as he slipped away, singing a lullaby through tears. "We were supposed to be safe," she sobbed to Harper afterward. "We survived Germany. We survived war. Why do we still keep dying?" "Because survival isn't a finish line," Harper said gently. "It's a road. Klaus didn't die alone. He died loved. That matters." When the ship docked, 2 crowds greeted them. On one side, a line of protesters screaming for the children to go back. On the other, church groups and immigrant associations forming a human wall to shield little bodies from raised fists. Margaret Patterson ignored the cameras. "No press," she told her staff. "No speeches. Get them on the buses." The convoy rolled north to the Hudson Valley. The estate was everything Margaret had promised. Dormitories with real beds, classrooms already stocked, a dining hall set for a welcome dinner, a playground glinting in the sun. Peter, the silent 6-year-old from Dresden who hadn't spoken a word since Munich, stared at a swing set as if it were a miracle. "Go ahead," Harper told him. "It's yours." The boy sat. Anna pushed gently, and for the first time anyone could remember, he smiled. The controversies did not end at the property line. Some neighbors refused to enroll German orphans in their schools. Some businesses refused service. One father snarled at a community meeting, "My boy died at Normandy. You expect me to welcome his killer's children?" Margaret's answer was simple and furious. "Your son died fighting tyranny. These children fled that same tyranny. Punishing them doesn't honor his sacrifice. It repeats the hate he died opposing." Slowly, stubbornly, the community adjusted. The children worked hard in school. They learned English. They learned baseball. They earned their way in with gratitude and gentleness. They also went to therapy, quiet sessions where a patient doctor taught them to name nightmares and fear, years before PTSD was a recognized diagnosis. "They're progressing," the estate psychologist told Margaret, "but the scars run deep." Harper returned to his unit but visited whenever he could. Each time, the changes startled him. Kids who had flinched at every sound now laughed at jokes. Teenagers talked about college. Peter, the boy who had once been a ghost in a child's body, chased pop flies on the lawn and argued passionately about who would bat cleanup. "Look at him," Harper said, watching from the bleachers. 2 years ago, he didn't speak. Now he's just a kid playing ball." "Resilience," Margaret replied. "When given safety and love, children bloom. In 1949, a documentary filmmaker captured the story. Children of War, Citizens of Peace aired nationwide. It showed the barn in Bavaria, the crossing, the estate, and the small, everyday triumphs that marked healing. It showed Harper admitting he'd been terrified of command and had chosen the children anyway. Letters poured in. Some were ugly, but most were from people galvanized to help. Other soldiers wrote confessions. "I found orphans too," one letter said. "I walked away because I was afraid to get in trouble. I think about them every day." "You can't save everyone," Margaret told Harper when the letters tortured him. "You saved these. That's enough." The U.S. Army quietly updated its doctrine. Protect civilian children regardless of nationality became standard guidance. "That's your legacy," Captain Morrison told Harper when they met again. "Policy born from courage." The children grew up. The Patterson estate became less an orphanage and more a community. Some of the teens were adopted by American families. Others stayed. Identity was complicated. "I feel guilty," Anna admitted to Harper one summer evening. "I love it here. I love being safe. But shouldn't I love Germany too? Doesn't being grateful to America make me a traitor to where I was born?" "You don't have to choose," Harper said. "You can carry both. The world isn't as simple as war made it." By 1951, Anna graduated top of her class, bilingual and brilliant, and told a graduation audience that she stood there because an American soldier had seen children instead of enemies. The speech was reprinted nationwide. It softened hearts that had stayed hard. The 1955 reunion brought nearly all the original children back to the estate, now young adults with jobs and families. They unveiled a statue of a GI carrying a child. One word at its base: humanity. An elderly Colonel Bradford arrived and put a trembling hand on Harper's shoulder. "When I let you continue that mission, I gambled on humanity instead of regulations," he said. "Best gamble I ever made." History kept moving. The Cold War turned former enemies into uneasy allies. Several of the Patterson children returned to West Germany for short trips, reconnecting with distant relatives and wrestling with dual identity. Some were called traitors by family members who had served the old regime. Their answer was steady. "My people are the ones who showed me kindness," one of them told Harper. "Nationality is accident. Character is choice." In 1975, President Ford placed the Presidential Medal of Freedom around Sergeant James Harper's neck. "He proved that protecting innocent lives is every soldier's highest duty," the president said. The Patterson children packed the room. Anna spoke for all of them. 200 of us lived because one man chose humanity over hatred. Thousands more exist because of that choice. Margaret Patterson died in 1972, but her estate survived her. She left her fortune to create a foundation that helped refugee children around the world. Vietnamese orphans in the 1970s, later children from Somalia, Syria, Central America, following the same model: rescue, shelter, school, therapy, community. "This is my life's work," Peter told a reporter years later. He had become a child psychologist. "I understand their nightmares because I had them. I know the way back from them because I was shown it." In 1995, the 50th anniversary reunion brought 4 generations to the grounds. The memorial wall listed the names of all 200 children, the 196 who survived, and thousands of descendants, over 3,000 lives and counting. James Harper, fragile and overwhelmed, wept as toddlers clambered into his lap and grandparents thanked him for everything that came after Bavaria. Anna, now 70, held his hand. "You couldn't walk past," she whispered, "and because you stopped, we exist." 3 months later, James passed away. The cathedral was full for his funeral. Peter spoke with a breaking voice. "He was our father," he said, "not by blood, but by choice. He gave us life twice, once by saving us, and once by teaching us how to live with dignity. The Patterson Estate was later designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a place where war's worst and humanity's best intersected. The barn in Bavaria was saved from demolition and turned into a small museum. People came to stand in the place where children cried, and a soldier chose mercy. By 2025, 80 years after the rescue, the math of mercy was staggering. More than 10,000 descendants lived full lives in 2 countries because one man would not leave a barn of German orphans to fate. Anna's great-great-granddaughter wrote a book that year, The Barn Children: How Mercy Defeated War. In its introduction, she wrote what had become the story's lesson. One soldier, one barn, one choice, thousands of lives. That is how compassion changes history. If stories like this move you, true accounts of World War II that show the bravery it takes to choose compassion, make sure you're subscribed. Drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. Share this with someone who believes, like Sergeant James Harper, that the greatest courage isn't in destroying enemies, but in seeing them as human and choosing mercy, even when, especially when, it's hard.